Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Going to look at the very first Dark Horse publication. Actually, it might not be the first Dark Horse publication, but it's one of them, and it's Dark Horse Presents #1. This is a second printing, but it has everything in it. So kind of looking at a very important historical book in the sense that the launch of Dark Horse I associate with this book, and still around today, one of the big indie companies of our lifetime.
Yeah, for sure, man. That is a question that I had while reading this, man. The chicken and the egg. Like, what comes first? You know, we're seeing Boris the Bear in ads and things like this. Like, what is the first Dark Horse comic? I feel like that's something that we should know, but it's not on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it, and I did a little bit of research, and it didn't come up definitively for me, so I'm sure we can get that filled out in the comments below. Or Mike Richardson, come on Cartoonist Kayfabe and tell us what the first publication was.
Yeah, it's goddamn right, man.
But this cover is Chris Warner. This was a book I picked up shortly after finding like a comic book shop, you know, like my first comic book shop, and I just loved this cover. I was renting those R-rated, straight-to-video, you know, B-movie, exploitation action movies, and this fit perfectly within like where I was at as a fan.
Chekhov's barbed wire labyrinth gimmicks, man. We'll see that pay off, and that's very phallic right there. Got a little tip.
Absolutely, and of course Chris Warner, I had known from Predator. So it wasn't my first encounter with Chris Warner, but man, I was on board. I loved that Predator miniseries, and then when I found this, it was like, Chris Warner's awesome.
I had old Chris Warner, man, like Batman comics. You know, I've been buying comics since I was 5 years old, man, and he had a couple of Batman fill-in issues whenever I was growing up, man. His art on this is stunning. It's so hard to imagine him drawing this stuff at 11 by 17. With stuff like this, and I don't know about you, Jimmy, but trying to draw characters at around this level and keeping their faces straight in terms of like this kind of style, keeping all the proportionality where it should be to make it feel like an action hero kind of style. It's very hard for me to do. Like I don't know how you do it, and he does it every time with these like far off shots, but he keeps all the proportion. It's not Corbin, where the heads are too big or the facial features are too big.
Right. It's a nice page layout all around, from your long shot to moving in, just zooming in slowly, getting closer and closer, even with your character looking off in the distance, looking away. First time we start to zoom in on him. Very
cinematic. Also, that looks like Lemmy Kilmister, and I do think that must be an influence for that character. It's too close.
And this is the movies I'm renting. This is what you get.
Absolutely.
Your team of like paramilitary specialists, special forces.
Got to have your one guy with the mohawk.
Yeah, the little
Billy Jack
accoutrement to give them their personality. It's G.I. Joe without the G.I. Joe.
Totally. You got your leather daddy. You got your Billy Jack.
The Vietnam vet. I feel like that. You know, that's the Vietnam vet with the bandana, the war vest.
Yeah. And then, yeah, your punk rock dude. And then your ersatz, everyman, like white dude, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme guy.
And interesting, the choker. I feel like that hasn't aged that well.
Yeah,
but that's a time right there. That's a time.
Yeah.
And 1986, should say, too, is the time. Little intro letter from Randy Stradley. Longtime Dark Horse employee, editor, you know, one of the probably the first couple of guys to join up with Dark Horse. So
Dark Horse is synonymous with Hollywood in a lot of ways with a lot of their shit, and this feels like a push to try to be in that direction, because we're having these like cinematic like flashback sequences, and it all works very filmically. On some of these pages.
Makes a lot of sense when you say that, and then think of him doing Terminator and Predator comics. You know, like it's an easy transition if you're really steeped in that kind of like almost film look.
Yeah.
To then adapt some of those properties. And the cool stuff in this, you know, in black and white, like this is me early discovery of black and white comics. So like they're doing flashbacks with screen tone to indicate like this. It's a flashback if you see that screen tone applied. That's pretty good, you know. It's storytelling 101. It differentiates the present from something else.
Silent panels as well.
And, of course, this is a post-apocalyptic world, because why wouldn't it be? And we're seeing, like, some of his past and some of the horrendous war atrocities that he was a part of, and the barbed wire showing up, Ed.
I'm just thinking about, like, when we were kids, like, watching these movies, it was never more an attractive time to, like, grow up to become a merc.
Yeah, it's true. This is right out of, like, First Blood Part 2.
Oh, totally.
You know, different gun, maybe, but same kind of deal. Just unloading off screen in that side shot. More of the helicopter invasions. Again, shades of Apocalypse Now. You can never see war helicopters without that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Francis. And what they're doing is going through this. I think this is in the United States, but it's like an area that's been infected with Black Cross, they call it. Some kind of plague of the time.
It's total, dude. I mean, they're up there in Portland. That's like, you know, lumberjack territory, man. Like, Chris Warner just went outside the crib and fucking drew his backyard right there. Mount Rainier right there.
They established this whatever this Black Cross is, some kind of something that shows up on a scanner, like a radioactive scanning device. So whenever they kill a guy, if they have it, you cut off the ear as proof. You know, you're basically trying to clean out these areas, and so that's what this team is doing. In as much as you need a plot here, this is right out of every one of those movies. You know, like noir. You know, instead of doing crime fiction, it sort of went into these like special forces and the gray areas of war. And how better to represent it than your shadowy blinds? So they stumble upon this old man who's out in the middle of nowhere by himself there, and, you know, quickly surround and overtake him. And they're trying to figure out what to do with him. They test him for the Black Cross, and sure enough, he has it. And our title character, Mr. Black Cross himself, he's not interested in killing this old man.
Yeah. There's what happens to the dude?
Yeah, it's too much. He's seen too much killing. And so his solution, kill all of his brothers in arm.
Got to turn heel. Got to kill Jesse Ventura. Got to kill Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
Got to kill the big Native American feller.
And, you know, he's living now by his rules. This is so much like, this is, you know, 13, 14-year-old me, like, fantasy comics. I would recopy some of these panels. This was just right up my alley. There was a Black Cross special that came out because there's a couple other appearances of him afterwards, and I was reading this after 1986.
Yeah.
So I would like track down all of those. It was like my Sin City while I was, you know, before Sin City was collected or whatever, and I was just starting to move in this direction. But I really got into this one and was a fan for quite a while. And it's wild to me to think of what Dark Horse is historically, and like this is your launch story. You know, this is their title book, and this is your lead off story.
Yeah, for sure. But like it's a sign of the times and stuff that would be the thing when you have, I guess, the first appearance of Concrete, which did get the back cover. Can you show the back cover? Is it the same? Yeah. So that is the back cover to the original issue 1, which I do have. I would have pulled it out like if I would have known. But yeah, there's your back cover. So.
And of course, Concrete was kind of the big book that I associated that wasn't a licensed property with Dark Horse.
Yeah.
Around this time, whenever I come in the late 80s, early 90s, we interrupt this video to pay some bills. Ed Piskor's Red Room. Do you like graphic violence, outlaw artwork? How do you feel about murder on the dark web for fun and profit? There are now several ways to pick up Ed Piskor's Red Room, starting with The Antisocial Network, a graphic novel available wherever books are sold that collects the first 4 issues of Red Room in this handsome volume, along with some great back matter like a first draft, in drawing form no less. Very awesome. Notes from the creator like a director's commentary. There's also new monthly Red Room comics starting up coming March 9th. Trigger warnings. The next series of Red Room comics, all self-contained by the way, so like series of short stories. Starting March 9th, this will be the cover to look for in your local comic shop. By the way, due to ransomware attacks on the distributor, this may be the lowest print run of any Red Room title, so pick this up as soon as you see it. These are the variants. Peach Momoko returns to do a Red Room variant for trigger warnings. This is my variant based on the Robert Crumb Zap comics. And this is Ed's variant, more along the lines of a traditional book cover design. Again, those will be in comic shops March 9th. Pick those up as soon as you see them. If you can't wait until March 9th, you can follow Red Room on Ed's Patreon and read them early as he's finishing them, posts new pages every Tuesday. And they are currently in the middle of trigger warnings on the Patreon, and that's patreon.com/EdPiskor. Links that you can find below this video. Pick up Red Room anywhere you buy comics. The perfect gift for yourself or the horror fan in your life. My next project, Hulk Grand Design, will be hitting stores March 16th. This is a definitive retelling of the Hulk's history, covering the first 40 years of Hulk comics, 10,000 pages roughly distilled into 2 oversized issues, and just in time to celebrate the Hulk's 60th anniversary. This is the perfect book for anybody who's into comic art. The Hulk, longtime fans, first-time readers, this is the perfect place to kind of renew your Hulk love if you've been a reader that's fallen off the wagon. And I need your help with this. I'm asking everybody who's watching Kayfabe to tell their local comic shops to pre-order Hulk Grand Design Monster for March 16th. That's 3/16. It'll be in stores everywhere. But you need to order that now if you want your store to stock up on Hulk Grand Design.
You know what I was thinking, Jimmy? We've Kayfabe affected so much stuff out in the comic book universe. Let us Kayfabe affect ourselves a little bit.
100%, Ed. That's exactly what I'm calling on all the Kayfabers out there. And we've got some great variants for Hulk Grand Design Monster. Peach Momoko, once again, like a friend of Cartoonist Kayfabe, apparently doing these variant covers. Marcos Martin doing a cool Hulk transformation. And, of course, Cartoonist Kayfabe's own Ed Piskor paying homage to Todd McFarlane, as well as Herb Trimpe's original Wolverine appearance with the whiskers. Such a cool comic, like I've said before. Makes me a little bit jealous that you came up with this concept, Ed. I love it. And for everybody watching, these variant covers are not retailer incentives. If you see one of these covers and that's the one you want, all the more reason to pre-order. Tell your local comic shop you want the Ed Piskor variant, and it'll be waiting on you March 16th. And now back to our regular scheduled videos. Concrete was a really, celebrated book.
Totally. They would do this stuff in these old comics where... Now, this is a very accomplished comic. Richardson is paying a couple of dollars, I have to assume, to get this kind of work. Because this is not your average black and white boom kind of comic.
No, and it shows in the details. Bill Spicer lettering here, John Workman lettering a couple of the other stories. These are professionals.
Yes, and that's a thing that you can afford that. You can afford a good letterer on your comics, and they would do this stuff. Todd Klein designed that original 11 Rockets logo. This logo sticks with Concrete forever. It's you create it one time and you use that shit forever if you create a good one. And it doesn't communicate Concrete in any real way, but I can't think of Concrete without that.
You know what it communicates is almost like that new agey element of Concrete. It's not the Concrete, the figure, so much as it is like the existential elements of Concrete, which I think was part of its success. It's a lot of these indie comics would be, this is a superhero comic, right? It's just that they're kind of approaching it a little different. He's not fist fighting a supervillain. He's dealing with what do you do if you're a superhero in the regular world.
Yeah, and in this one, he's dealing with some fan mail, and boy, times have not changed at all with anything, man. So it's every version of the DMs we get, or the emails, or the tweets or something, where you have some homunculus schmuck writing in talking about how you need to use your platform for this piece of ideology, or to get this thing across.
They even use the phrase social justice.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's totally perfect, man.
It's so funny. So you go from that, this is what you need to do, make the world better, to I'm so hot for you, Concrete, to my husband, I'm a victim of domestic abuse. It's just wow. But you don't see this in superhero comics. So if you're a superhero fan, you understand superhero vernacular. And look, 1986, that's what you're getting in an American comic shop with superheroes. This kind of makes sense, and then it's a whole different writing than what you're going to find in your Marvel DC comics.
I love the back matter of this, where it gives a little hold on real quick, where it gives a little background of each of the artists and creators and stuff, and it's Paul Chadwick, hot off his run on Dazzler, he's from fandom, and he worked on Appa 5, which is that Frank Miller Appa.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
It's one of the most important Appas to ever exist. I think Michael T. Gilbert, a lot of people who, I think Chris Warner was a part of that. It might be a Portland thing. It's one of the most important fanzines ever. So he comes from that space, But he's still, he's still new to the comic game. So it's like you get these weird tangents, like this thing. But this is my favorite one because it looks like he's wearing that Bizarre Heroes Don Simpson
Yeah.
like hot dog vendor hat.
That's hilarious. That's real funny. And this letter, and this is again like some of the stuff that you would enjoy is detail to panel layouts. Like that's a pretty interesting panel layout that you're not probably going to see in a Marvel DC. It works because you're the writer and you're going to put a block of text in there, so you don't have to draw a caption box around it. It's kind of elegant. But this is the letter that he responds to, and it's to be part of a birthday party.
Money,
He's $1,500 to come to a birthday party.
He's Paris Hilton, come to our club, hang out for one night so that it attracts people to come in. But this is that thing where, like such small real estate, the postage stamp size panels.
Yeah, really kind of interesting sequences here. And we get a supporting character, which is well done. When you're trying to create a series, like it's important to try to figure out how to populate it with different characters and points of view so you can bounce things around. And this is his doctor who's studying him.
Yeah, and that's the chair that he has to sit in. And I don't know about you, man, but there are portly people in my family, like not the nuclear family, but extended, and they come over and visit. Sit down on your furniture. Your furniture ain't the same afterward, dude. Sometimes you even hear a snap.
That's so true.
You really do, man. We got some corn-fed people here, man, in Pennsylvania.
Permane brother fed people here in Pennsylvania. So he rides around in the back of a truck. I like that. That's a pretty fun, considered detail. And again, like this is realism. In 1980s superhero comics, that's realism.
Oh, just wait till we get to the next Paul Chadwick story. I have so much to say.
And it's a kid's party, all right. We're still on board. But the mother who brought him into the party reveals she has no money to pay him.
You ain't getting no $1,500, but listen, man.
He could just leave and break these kids' heart or make the best of it and have some cake, which I don't think he can actually eat. But he does stay and party with these kids, and we're still on board. I feel like this is a good story so far. Larry gets some of the cake and ice cream. Get a nice memory of the kid's 8th birthday party, and off they go, and no hard feelings, right?
Until you see the car up there on top of the garage, man. Like Concrete puts her whip up there.
This reminds me a lot of like Steve Rude art from the time period. And, Rude, one of the greatest figure artists ever, so I don't want to disparage anybody with any of these comparisons. But I do think there was like a thirst for this kind of high level of illustration, detail, thoughtful stories, still kind of like superhero adjacent in terms of your genre and the visuals, but that's a pretty elegant kind of bit of drawing there.
Oh, absolutely. Like yeah, the whole bit, he's known for that, man. Like very kind of well referenced figures and stuff.
You mentioned Chris Warner's story looking very cinematic. Chadwick has some history in Hollywood, doing storyboards and stuff. So that it's interesting. Again, I'd like to talk to Richardson about some of this stuff, but it seems like that was a part of his vision for Dark Horse from the very beginning, having sort of this pipeline going both ways, and clearly, film and cinema being an influence, I think, on the direction Richardson puts together for Dark Horse.
Yeah, Dr. Giggles will show up in the pages of Dark Horse Presents, The Mask.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mindwalk, kind of a science fiction story here. Randy Stradley, the co-creator and writer. Randy Emberlin, the co-creator and artist, workman on letters. And both of those Randys, I feel like, hang out a lot in the credits of early Dark Horse comics. They're bringing in, again, superhero adjacent. They're bringing in a guy who has the ability to, like, enter somebody's mind, right? So maybe an X-Men outcast here shows up. Some organized criminals. One of them even has, as if we don't have enough superhero elements, a metal claw for a hand, keeping this guy in line. And they bring him to basically try to get some information out of this old man who's dying, who they've been, I think, putting through the ringer for a while, trying to extract information from him. And this is their latest plan, to put this guy, a young Charles Xavier, into this dude's head and bring us some answers. And kind of a fun visual of however you're going to represent that sort of moment.
Yeah, and this is where it creates the opportunity to pull out the duotone.
Yeah, again,
those
taking,
sequences.
taking advantage of the black and white. Like, how can you make a black and white book not feel lesser than? And that's one of their answers. And some of the duotone that you don't always see.
Yeah,
That-
the Howard Chaykin duotone.
that speckle kind of piece.
With zips on top of it, which can be a very scary proposition. You could create those mores, and I do see a little bit in there, but it's not bad.
Yeah, not too bad. And try to figure out your characters so that they're easily identifiable. About the most opposite two character faces you could figure out, right?
Got them right.
One's hair's on top and one hair's on the chin. And this goes all the way back to World War II and Nazi stuff, Nazi science. We see his family killed. And basically he has whatever this information is. I don't know if it's about a virus or... Yeah, I guess so.
It's about Black Cross.
Yeah, maybe it is. Tie it all together. And trying hard not to let this information out. And this guy who's supposed to free the information ends up helping him by solidifying the wall that he's constructed, and nobody's going to be able to get this information out of this guy's head. Kind of a fun 8-page science fiction story. For a short story, not bad. Like, you lay out a lot of information and wrap it up in a satisfying way there. But not exactly stand out either. It's Mindwalk or Mind Warp, whatever this is, you don't see that spun off into the movies or the standalone series.
Like when you're in there with like concrete, which is a very striking image, it's hard to stack up to that, man.
So Paul Chadwick in for a double dip on this one, brighter, and let's dive right in. First thing I noticed is the stark black and white.
This is an era of Jaime Hernandez exists in comics now, and this is like before that, like Strangers in Paradise guy, like this is a kind of wannabe Love and Rockets story.
And also, you nailed it earlier. This is the guy who's hot off of a run on Dazzler.
Yeah.
With his character who can create like light projections.
Right, yeah, but like the spirit of this thing with all of this like purple prose narrative stuff, it really is like a less elegant man, I'm forgetting what the Jaime character is from those early eras, man, with the girl that has the little robot that's like has a circle head with like a pill body.
Oh man, I'm not gonna pull that out.
Yeah, I forget.
I have
man.
old man brain, Ed.
But it's in Erzat's version of that kind of whimsy.
Yeah, it makes so much sense too. And even some of these visuals, like some of the patterns on her shirt really call to mind, like, of course, the Hernandez brothers, being an influence if you're making black and white, non-Marvel DC style art and stories.
This is one of those things you always got to like watch out for, man, when you're butting two dark shadows up together with just like that gutter piece right there. But that just speaks to, he's newish to comics. Like he could draw like a motherfucker, man, but some of that panel to panel stuff.
Yeah, and having that total freedom, like you're going from, his experience working, say, at Marvel, where you're doing penciling off of a script and have an editor there and an inker to pick up some stuff. Now you're kind of on your own winging it. It's your story and your breakdown and your script. So look at this for your iconography that you're pulling from and putting into this story.
Your eye goes right to Sly, man. Talk about your First Blood Part 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we don't even have to go to First Blood to see that reference.
Probably intentional.
Yeah, I think so.
But still, skating that line of tangent, really. Like this is that thing that happens in art school when you learn about directional devices. All the students will start doing this kind of thing, and it's like, pump the brakes a touch, man. And you know what? A way to solve that, by the way, like if you go back real quick, man, like one way to solve that kind of stuff is if there's just like some foreground element right here. Like if it's just not so close, like if you had some sort of foreground thing, but then you still had this line, that would still create those directional devices without it being so on the money.
There's not a lot in this story.
No, they filled out a couple extra pages.
It's
leaving
her like just dreaming of what she's going to do with this power. It's time to get started. So much to do. This could be the mantra of almost everybody I know in that I came up with.
Yeah, sure.
I do enjoy the lighting coming out of the windows around the house. A lot of good visuals, as you say, Ed, for sure. And I was wrong. It looks like Mindwalk is going to come back for at least one more appearance in Dark Horse Presents. And there's your biographies of these different creators. And these are updated. So if you have this, this is a subsequent printing. I said a second printing. It says commemorative on the cover. So this was done a couple of years later. So they do update all of these different people. And, with Chadwick, like, at some point we're going to look at some of the concrete, maybe concrete number one or one of the miniseries or something, because it was, in a lot of ways, like, I compare it to Hellboy. I know that's a weird one, but I mean, like, this is what he put his career into.
Yeah.
It was an interesting character. It was a flexible character in that he told a lot of different stories over 15 or 20 years with this character and got better and better as an artist. So definitely somebody that I think is worth diving into more of his work and his title character.
I look forward to it because I don't know much. Like, whenever I started getting into comics, direct market comics, Concrete was already up and running, and the people who I associated with that comic, the people who were reading that, it was adults. Like, at the stage I was at, I really wasn't looking for something like that, man. I was still on that Stephen Platt profit tip and shit like that, man. And then for whatever reason, I just never went there. It's like there's that era of comics. It's like it's a specific generation. The Concrete reader is the person who wasn't able to read any more Elementals or like Mage Grendel or you could point to a handful of things, man.
It's really an interesting character in that, like, what's laid out in here where you're seeing the fan mail and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of a blueprint in that, like, if your question is what would superheroes be like in the real world, Concrete might be the best thing you could come across. Because I don't know if he throws a punch through if you ever see him throw a punch at anything, but there's all this different stuff of like, well, what do you do with this? And there's a spectacle element. It's almost like Evel Knievel or something, and that, well, he's a publicity machine, climb Mount Everest. And it's also, he's a celebrity. So what happens when his friends are endangered or somebody really wants something from him? How do they leverage that? So it's interesting stories. It's almost that exercise. You could imagine it being given to some young writer or something as an exercise of what do you do with this premise? And Chadwick goes in some cool directions and novel directions compared to what you were seeing in superhero comics.
Yeah, there's a lot just even in that first story, man, where like he's talking about, yep, my hands aren't built to open envelopes. So
yes, exactly.
He's also a heavy character. So you have to think that stuff through, man. You think that if your house ever had termites, he would be able to stand on those floorboards? That ain't happening.
Hey man, I'm not sure he could stand on just your standard floorboards. 1,000-pound rock creature runner. He might be more than 1,000 pounds, but nevertheless, there's Dark Horse Presents #1. Again, interesting comic from comics history, middle of the black and white explosion, and one of the few guys that comes out of the black and white explosion, Mike Richardson, publisher of Dark Horse, who leverages that into, well, I think a pretty lucrative career in comics.
I know you have some of those Dark Horse Presents that has the Mask character, Masque. We gotta check out some of those on a future episode, man. You good for now, though?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell, we'll notify you when new vids are available. What's out there, Jimmy?
Hulk Grand Design Monster out 3/16, but you need to order that thing now if you want to have a copy waiting for you at your local comic shop in March. And I implore the Kayfabers out there, man. I want to apply the Kayfabe effect to Hulk Grand Design Monster. I want to show Marvel what we can do. I want to show every publisher what we can do, because maybe we have some big ideas. And test #1 is let's sell Hulk Grand Design Monster. So go to your local comic shop, pre-order that. 4 variant covers that aren't retailer incentive. Order all 4 of them. But a lot of great covers there to choose from. So let your local comic shop know which one you want, and that is Hulk Grand Design Monster.
Red Room Comics in the Wild, Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. You can get Red Room, the Antisocial Network trade paperback in stores today, man. Go get those comics. Every issue is completely self-contained, so there are 4 different stories in that trade paperback. They will prime the pump for Red Room Trigger Warnings, which is coming out in March 9th to be specific. And same deal. Every story will be self-contained, complete meaty episodes every month for 4 months in a row. Be collected in the Trigger Warnings trade at the end of the year, and you could read these comics ahead of time on my Patreon, patreon.com/edpiskor. $3 for the archive there, man. Well over 200 pages worth of comics at this point, and you could read Trigger Warnings before it hits paper. What else do we have?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below the video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below the video.
Jimmy, given those marching orders, we're going to be on our way.
Read more comics.